Welcome to Trigger Talk, your place for everything first-person shooters like Battlefield, Call of Duty, and so much more. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing just dandy. Ready to talk some Battlefield today. We are going to be talking about our hopes and expectations for the next Battlefield game. And we'll probably do another episode like this as we get more details and thoughts and we get a little bit closer. Maybe some leaks are going, but this is our Summer 2024 Battlefield 2025 Thoughts and Expectations episode.
That's a mouthful enough.
Yes. So let's jump in. Okie dokie. Sammy, last episode, we talked about X-Defiant, its live service, and kind of what Battlefield can learn, and our thoughts just kind of comparing the two. This episode, we're going to talk about just kind of our hopes for the general experience that is Battlefield. Enter name or number here. What are you thinking?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot I'm thinking. I've got like two things that I would really like to see, and they're both probably hot takes. One,
Death to Boris, number one.
Yes, absolutely. Just the Battlefield Death to Boris. That's the name. And the whole game is you hunting him down and killing Boris. No, I would first and foremost love to see Bad Company 3. That's really what I want. I want them to go back to like...
Could you imagine?
Oh, man.
If they run the trailer, there's no branding, it just says DICE Frostbite Engine, jumps into the setting that looks kind of familiar, keeps it going, and in the last second, Bad Company 3. Do you know how insane the internet would be?
And have at the end of the trailer a shot of a grenade with the little smiley face on it, and that
yes!
pops before the name, and everyone. Oh, I actually just got chills from that. That actually just gave me chills. That would
good.
Be so amazing. It reminds me of I want to say it was the Portal trailer for 2042, and it had that moment where the grenade falls on the ground and it has. It was such a good trailer, man. So that would be my number one want, simply because it just feels like that would bring us back to the roots a little bit. Bad Company 2, and it's probably a bit different for me. That's where I like started. So that for me, that is like my origin of Battlefield. I know not everyone's the same, so not everyone might like it as much as I think they would, I guess. But that just feels like it would bring us back to kind of where we need to be. That's the type of Battlefield I want, is just a little bit more grounded. Make it a little bit, a little bit, it's weird. Bad Company 2 feels a lot smaller, and I guess because it's so old, I guess it is a lot smaller, but I don't necessarily want a smaller player count. But like, I want the game to feel a bit smaller. Shrink it down, don't make the map so freaking big. Give me the same amount of like surface area, but more maps, give me how many did we launch with in 2042? 7. Give me like 10 maps and they're all a bit smaller. And it's not like you're doing crazy amounts more work, because if you shrink all the maps down, you're still, I know that's not quite how it works, but you've got less actual like development area that you have to make.
And typically, as the maps get smaller, the games get better.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They've even like clearly admitted that too, with the end of like every map just got smaller. Even like it just kept getting smaller. It's like it got to a size where we're like, yes, this is what we want, and then they're like, no, we're doing it smaller again. It has to be smaller. So yeah. Anyway, that's my number one want, is Bad Company 3. That's more of a personal, just like that's where I started. So I've been saying I want to go back to the roots, and that to me is the roots of my Battlefield experience. My other alternative is reboot the franchise. Call it Battlefield. No number. Just call it Battlefield. Yeah. Make it in the similar setting to like Battlefield 3 and 4, of just like a kind of modern day. We don't need to know the year. I don't care if it's set in 2010 or 2025. I don't really care. Just in that rough era. Urban maps, gritty feeling, like just just a Battlefield 3 feeling game, Battlefield 4 feeling game, and just call it Battlefield. I don't put any characters in there that we know, or if we do, like, kind of, I guess you could do it similar to how Call of Duty's done, like, you know, they've rebooted the Modern Warfare franchise, and like Price is in there again, but it's a different actor, and they've slightly like changed him a little bit. I'd be okay with that, but for the most part, just give us a brand new.
The only familiar character is Boris.
No, I don't want to.
The only reason is so they can put him in the trailer for that Bad Company 3 grenade to go into his stomach and then explode.
Okay, now you've sold me. But yeah, I think like a reboot, and I guess it can be a soft reboot. It doesn't have to be like full on. They don't have to announce like, hey, we are rebooting the franchise. You don't have to announce that. Just call it Battlefield. Just make it like feel as though we're kind of restarting a little bit. And again, realistically, it wouldn't even be that much different than what I just said with Bad Company 3. Just give me that sort of feeling that I got playing those games of, I just want to be playing on urban maps. And not to say every map has to be urban, but like, I don't know. Just when
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, when I think of Battlefield 3
don't listen to Sammy,
4,
guys. Give it to us all of the urban maps.
I mean, to be honest,
so long.
I wouldn't even complain either. I would be actually pretty down for that. But just I don't know. I don't know how to describe what that type of game is, but I'm sure you know what I mean. That feeling of Battlefield 3 and 4, where it just felt grounded. It felt like they were trying to emulate
lived in,
war.
Condensed, tight.
Yeah, lived in is a really good. Yeah, the maps and stuff in 2042 just felt like they had made a multiplayer map. Do you know what I mean? I love when a map feels as though
it felt empty.
Yeah, when a map feels like, oh, there's a reason that piece of cover's there, and there's all this debris on the ground, and you know, it just feels better. I don't know why. It shouldn't affect the gameplay. It really shouldn't. But I don't know what it is. Just that feeling of the Battlefield 3 and 4 years. And I guess even to an extent, Battlefield 1 had that. It was just so different, such a different setting that it doesn't. I don't like put those two together. But realistically, Battlefield 1 did the same thing. It just felt very immersive, very, very grounded, and very like brutal. And that just made me love it more. It has that like nostalgia feeling to it, even though, or I mean, that game's freaking 8 years old now, isn't it? Holy shit, we're getting old. Yeah. I was going to say that game's not that old, but yeah, it actually is. But like, there's such I feel the same nostalgia for Battlefield 1 as I do for games that came out when I was like 5 or 10 years old. It feels that old to me, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it still plays well, but I mean it feels like an old, nostalgic, memorable experience that I had. And same with Battlefield 3 and 4. And so anyway, those are my two wants. I want either Bad Company 3 or... Because the only issue with that is that, like, if it's not... You know, let's just say it comes out and it's kind of the same as 2042. It's just not Battlefield, and we just don't like it. Then you're at risk of like really annoying people, and that would really annoy me if you made Bad Company 3 the sequel to what I think is one of the best Battlefields ever, and it sucks. Then I'm a bit like, oh man, you've kind of, not to say they've ruined the Bad Company sub-franchise, but like, do you know what I mean? It kind of makes you a bit more annoyed. The good thing about just rebooting it and calling it Battlefield is I feel like expectations would be a little bit lower, and there's less... Not to say there's less pressure.
If they just say Battlefield, it's like, okay, we don't know what to expect. If they say Battlefield 3, it's like, or Battlefield Bad Company 3, it's like, well, I know exactly what that's going to be.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it, actually. I know what I want from Bad Company 3. If they reboot the franchise, I'm kind of actually all ears to let them tell me what this new era is going to be like, and hopefully it's still similar to the old ones, but I would be a lot less... Like, I'd have much less expectation, I guess, about that. So, anyway, that's what I would be keen on. What about you?
I think the idea of just having it be Battlefield, I think if they don't do that, I would be incredibly surprised. I think it gives them such a like get out of jail free card for a lot of the decisions that they made with 2042. 2042 is supposed to be like this semi reboot, semi like let's bring it back to basics. Let's build I think they specifically called it the foundation for the future of Battlefield. It didn't end up being that. It ended up being sand that they put a bunch of stuff on top of. But I think giving it the title of Battlefield would be perfect, honestly, for what it needs to be. Which, in my opinion, what it needs to be is it needs to feel more like a war shooter. It needs to feel like we've been talking about, lived-in experience, lived-in world. The maps feel like they have just been vacated. If you're going to do this, you need to have the maps feel like people are holed up in a building, they're boarded up. If those buildings aren't available to be played inside of, it needs to have this experience where it feels like, okay, I can't get in there because there's a bunch of people behind that door trying to protect their families. Rather than like, well, that's a building that's been empty for probably since it was built because it looks real shiny and nothing has changed about it. Yeah. I want smaller scale. I want honestly, I want maps that are designed for I want maps with decisions. I want maps with personality. I want maps that have an opinion on what they should be and how they should be played. I don't want every map to be like, okay, we got to make sure the vehicle people are happy. We got to make sure the infantry people are happy. We got to make sure that the people in the helicopters are happy. Like, I don't care. I want there to be a map that's like, okay, yes, you can be in a tank, or you can be in like a little 4-wheeler thing, but it's gonna suck. You might get a bunch of opportunities where you can pull that off really well, but it's gonna be far and few between. And I want other maps where it's like, if you're not in a vehicle, sucks to you, buddy. Yeah, sucks to be you. Better get a rocket launcher. Like, yeah. I want that experience. I want each map to have a personality.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. I've never really heard that. A map having a personality is like what I think that's what makes a lot of the Battlefield 1 and 3 and 4 maps so good, is that, oh man, like just looking at Battlefield 1, I think they nailed it with that. Is like, I don't know, Monte Grappa, for example, that's such a random map. It's just freaking on a hill. That's it. There's nothing else to it. There's a bunker, well, there's 2 bunkers. That's literally the entire map, but it has that personality. That is what the map is, and it's, if you maybe you like running an SMG, well, unfortunately, you'll probably struggle a little bit on that map because it's not really designed for that. But yeah,
if you really want to, go ahead, buddy.
Exactly. So
have fun.
I agree with that completely. That's I think the map design issue in 2042 is because I don't love a lot of the maps in Battlefield 5, but I still felt like they did have that personality a little bit. So
they did. Yeah, they had choices that were made specifically for each map, rather than being like, okay, we need to make sure this map is able to be cut into sections for this experience and this experience.
Yeah.
I feel like I personally have a ton of nostalgia for 2015's Battlefront, so take this with a grain of salt. It could just be fueled with the nostalgia of close to 10 years ago. But I love the maps from those games because they were designed for specific modes and specific play styles. Battlefront 2017, Battlefront 2 2017, it had some good maps. But as they got further along in the experience, they started doing this thing where they made this one big map. And maybe they did it from the beginning. I can't remember. But they made one big map, and then they cut it into sections for other experiences. And then they continued that with 2042, where instead of having a map like in 2015's Battlefront, where it's like, this is only going to be played on like Blast, or I'm trying to like pull out the memories of Battlefront 2015, Droid Capture, Cargo was my favorite.
Oh, Cargo was so good.
So good. But like, those were the only games you could play on those maps.
Yeah. I like
Solus,
that too.
You want to play Solus? Well, good luck. You're going to have to do a small scale map unless you want this other bigger map.
I think, like, obviously that has the downside of it probably takes a lot more, they probably can't put out as much content, because if you're making, let's just say they release the Solust map, like if it's just for cargo, then they can't they've kind of got to make a second map to put that into Conquest, for example. That's the downside of it, but it just, because it was like that in, or at least to an extent it was like that in the old Battlefield games, where it felt like the rush maps were rush maps. They weren't just a Conquest map where you could play rush, even though ironically a lot of them were. But they had, it felt like when they designed a Conquest map, they would design it with the knowledge that they were going to also put this little section here as the rush part. And they would design that on purpose. So like thinking of like, there's so many maps I can think of that just clearly had been designed. This part of the map was designed for rush, but then the overall map was still designed really well for Conquest and for the other modes. That's what I think they definitely need to get back to, because playing rush on the Conquest maps in 2042 is just so bad. There's no like cover, there's no flow to them. There's no, you don't, half the time if the objective markers weren't there, I wouldn't know where I'm going. Whereas in Battlefield 3, I knew that like we blow up those two MCOMs and then I just know where I'm going because the map like funnels you in that direction. 2042 was just not like that. It was like you'd get past that, phase and you'd be on to the next one. And you'd just have to be like, okay, where are we going? Like I gotta wait for the objective markers to pop up because I don't know what the hell I'm doing right now.
Yeah. If you go like those other maps, if you just follow the way that you think you would lead to the actual objective, you would get to the objective.
Yeah, exactly.
In 2042, it's just kind of like floating around and seeing where people are, following the markers, rather than being like, okay, this is where it should be, right? Go on, boom, there you are in the older games.
Yeah, that's a great point about like designing the maps with a bit of purpose and like personality, because I think that is the main issue that 2042 faced. Really, was just the premise of the maps and stuff was cool, but it just felt like there was no like structure to them. It was just it was like they were too hell bent on designing a real place, if that makes sense. Like you look at like Breakaway, and it was just a big snowfield, and that like it's pretty accurate to what a real snowfield would look like.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter for a shooter. I don't care how accurate it.
Yeah, if you went to Antarctica, it probably looked very similar to that.
But yeah, that's a great point. And that's no matter what the actual title of the game is, no matter what setting it is, that is more important for sure than. At the end of the day, I don't really care what the setting is. I don't really care what the title is. I just want it to feel good, feel like Battlefield. Bring back the class system, make the maps good. Put it in freaking whatever setting you want. I don't really mind, but yeah, that's something that I'm hopeful they've learnt from 2042 on how to sort of, I guess, improve on those mistakes they made with the launch maps in that game.
Yes, they need help desperately. I hope they learned a lot with those map reworks and then also the new maps after the reworks. Hopefully all the people that did all those reworks and helped with the other maps stayed on with the team, because that would be great. To actually keep that learning experience in-house, because like we've talked about before, no other game studio would do that, but no other game studio really would need to do that, to go back to the maps that they released at launch and then completely redesign them or restructure them or reorganize them, however you want to put it, for an update, and then also market that as like a key piece of the season. Yeah.
It's pretty wild when you think about it, that was like promoted as like a good thing. Like, and it was a good thing in like thank you for fixing the maps, but like probably keep that a little bit hush hush. We don't need to hear about that.
The next thing that I kind of want them to take another look at is just the live service experience. It needs work. It needs some help. They need to delay the game just so they can make enough maps for the live service game for the first year, honestly, because I feel like they need to follow that X-Defiant like thinking where it says, oh, hey, we're going to make a game that is going to have a new map every single month of the first year. I think that's what has to happen. They need to do this. I don't think they were able to really nail enough structure or give enough content, meaningful content, for the game to be viable long term.
Yeah, that's something I'm very curious to see how they manage, because I just don't think they can do that. And I completely agree with what you said. I think they need to do that, but I just don't. I just don't see them. Even every 2 months, I think is a stretch to get a map, which is pretty mental. Unless they just hire, I don't know if they. I know there's a lot more sort of people on the team because they've got there's more studios involved now, so maybe they can do it. But yeah, I'm a bit nervous about that. The cadence, I don't think it's going to be any better than we got in 2042. I really don't.
I'm afraid you're going to be right, but at this point, I think they need to look at it differently. They need to see what X-Defiant, Call of Duty, Apex freaking Legends, the same company that's owned by EA. They need to look at this differently.
Yeah, 100%. And because that's the thing too, is that, and it's ironic because we've been saying for so long, like, just get the launch right and that's all that matters. But the live service is such a huge part of the game. You've got to keep people hooked.
It's a core feature of the launch. Whether or not the actual content comes at launch, it's a core piece, a core mechanic.
Yeah. And so they do need to put a lot of focus into it. Obviously, get the launch right from the start. But like, yeah, we need a good keep us hooked, because otherwise the same thing will just happen again of like, okay, the game,
I'll only play when there's an update, and then never come back until there's another update, and that's a bad thing to train your audience to do. Yeah,
exactly. That's like, that's just the first class ticket to another sort of dead game. They just can't afford that. They need to have constant excitement, even if they can't constantly add new maps and all that kind of thing. Do like limited time modes, do events, do something. There's got to be something in there that keeps us engaged, because that is really the biggest issue for me with 2042. That because I had a lot of issues with the game, but overall the gameplay and just the gameplay loop in general, I had fun with the game. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
but it just didn't hook me. So I would just play it and then I'd be done till the next update, and that's not what I want from any shooter, let alone Battlefield, which is my favorite of all of the shooters. So yeah, it makes me kind of nervous that it's just going to be the same sort of cadence as 2042. But yeah, I'm also basing that off nothing. That's just me basing that off. That's what they gave us this time, so I assume they do it next time. But also, that's not really how it works either. So they may drastically improve that. I'm sure they know they need to, but it's just whether they can. It's not even me saying like they're lazy or something. I just literally don't know if they can do that much output. They've shown that they can't. And so, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to watch what goes on there, because I'm actually pretty confident it will launch decent. I'm not expecting it to launch like super well, because it's Battlefield. They've literally never had a history of it launching well. But that extra year, I am actually confident like, this one might be a bit more stable than normal. But I'm not at all confident that the live service is going to improve, which is realistically just as important, if not realistically more important, because even we're kind of used to the games not launching well. So I think I'd kind of like accept that a little bit. If it launches rough again, I'd be like, this is annoying, but like, that's Battlefield for you. But then if the live service was really, really good and they fixed the issues quickly, and by 6 months into the game it's really good, and then we're getting good content at a good pace, I think I'd actually still prefer that than the game launches super well. It's a 10 out of 10 at launch, but then we just get like one map every 6 months. Like that's just, then I don't care how good the game is, you've still got to keep us interested. So yeah, it's a fine line that I'm really not sure how it's going to go, to be honest.
Yeah. I hope you're wrong, but I think you might be right with this idea that what we got originally is probably what we're going to get going forward, which is sucks. It'd be so so sucky if they say, oh yeah, we loved all the feedback that you got us in Battlefield 2042, and going forward, we're going to take that to heart and give you one map per season. Would suck.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that they, like, I know that they'll know that isn't, they can't do that, but yeah, there's a difference between knowing that you need to change something and then being able to change it. It's just whether there's enough people there. It's whether we know there's like the internal issues with EA that they just seem to, like, I don't know, the way that they run things over there is just kind of odd. And so, yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. That weirdly, going into this game, I feel more confident than I have for quite some time now in that it will launch decent. I think it can launch at like a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. But then I'm actually less confident about the live server side of it, which has never really been the issue. That's actually always been the thing that we know, like, all right, once the game comes out, usually it's really good after launch.
Yeah.
But now it's like flipped randomly. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm scared. But yeah, let us know your thoughts though in the comments below. Would love to hear what your hopes and expectations are for the next Battlefield game. Drop those in the comments if you watch this on YouTube, or contact at uplinkpodcast.com. If you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, check out Sammy Boy's YouTube channels, and as always, we'll see you later, video gamers.